Hi, I'm your host, Anand J. Sukadia, and this is the Limitless One Podcast. Join me on this journey as I interview the most inspirational souls who are tapping into their limitless blueprint on a mental, physical, and spiritual level to thrive in uncertain times. If you feel you are so much more than just this body, just this life, and want to tap into your limitless potential, you're in the right place. Here we go, starseeds. For all of human history, since the dawn of man, ancient civilizations used darkness retreats as a way of expanding one's consciousness. Today, we have the blessing of talking to a highly conscious light worker, Tiffany Malone, about her life-enhancing experience doing 4 days and 4 nights in complete darkness and silence. Welcome to the Limitless One Podcast. We are back after a long break for all new episodes with some of the most inspiring souls on the planet. Tiffany Malone is an Akashic Reader, Akashic Womb Healer, Light Language Healer, Ascension Guide, and Intuitive Channel. Tiffany has dedicated her adult life to inner healing and helping others reawaken their soul's journey. She is a bridge between your conscious mind and the guidance of your soul, and is dedicated to supporting you on your spiritual awakening and ascension journey by reconnecting you to your soul's wisdom, inner power, and purpose. This is Tiffany's second appearance on the Limitless One podcast. Check out episode 53, where we go deep into her work as an Akashic Record Reader and the multidimensional modalities of her healing practice.
It was just such a beautiful gift. Really, really beautiful. I wish I could share it with everybody. I just want everybody to experience that because it's such wholeness, you know. If everybody could just experience it, it would be such a different world. People would be so different.
Welcome to the Limitless One podcast, Tiffany Malone. It's her second appearance. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be here. It's been a while since we got together. I think it's been a couple of years since the last podcast. So I know that both of our lives have changed since then, especially yours with little Zen. So yeah, it's wonderful to connect again.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm so excited about this conversation because first of all, yeah, I just want to mention we talked 2 years ago and I've had a couple of sessions with you. My wife has had a couple of sessions with you as well. And yeah, you've impacted our lives in so many beautiful ways. And one of the major ones was the womb healing you did with Kate. And yeah, we were trying for quite a while to conceive, and now we have a kid. And your work with her is high up there on the list of what we attribute our blessing to. So thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. When I do the work, I mean, of course, with Akashic readings also, there's just this beautiful soul-to-soul connection. But womb healings are just so dear to me because it's connecting to not only the client soul, but the soul of the child that's potentially coming in or within the womb. And you know, I just find that there's so much light there, and just the fullness and the energy that's present with these souls that are coming in. You know, even when they're in the field, if they're not even within the womb yet, it's just such a beautiful way to connect. So on such deep levels, it's really amazing work. Yeah.
Beautiful. So before we start talking about what I asked you to come on, the darkness retreat that you recently went on, can you just give us a little background on who you are and you know what the gifts that you share with the world? We did do a prior episode, like I mentioned, so I would highly suggest everybody go check out that episode. I'll link it in the bio of the podcast.
Yeah. So, well, I do Akashic readings, and that's kind of how I started. I started being drawn to the Akashic realm. It started coming up in my field. This was quite a few years ago. And prior to that, I had done some animal communication, and I kind of dabbled in that realm, but never really fully immersed myself in it. So when I was introduced to the Akashic Records, it was just such a draw. And so I started doing readings for myself. First of all, I had a reading, which just blew my mind. And then I decided that I wanted to learn how to read for myself instead of always going to somebody else. So I started doing readings for myself, and then friends started asking me for readings. And it just kind of evolved in that way. It was kind of a natural way of evolution for it. And it's funny how things, flow into something else, because I started noticing this pattern of clients that were coming to me for Akashic readings who were women and who were either trying to conceive or having difficulties, pregnancy, or women who were even beyond that stage, menopausal, just having issues with the womb. And so I started doing womb healings and, connecting, like I mentioned earlier, in that manner. And I really feel like that's a calling for right now, for the souls that are coming in to the earth, for the mothers that are conceiving and during their pregnancy. I've helped women in first trimester, conceive and first trimester having difficulties, and then all the way through the pregnancies. Some women have had these sessions all the way through. And it's just such a deep connection. And the great thing also is that the father of the child will come through during these healings. It's not just about the client. It's like if the energy of the father or a healing for the father needs to come through, that's also present. So it's just so broad and so beautiful. And that's mainly the work that I've been doing. I do incorporate light language with many of the healings. And that's always been something that I just, I feel it kind of takes it to a deeper level. Whatever comes through at the time. Some sessions don't have any light language at all. And then others, there's a lot of light language and a lot of healings through light. So that's all part of it also.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful work. And like I can attest to it. Every time we've done a session, I think I've done 2 or 3 with you, and they were about a year apart or maybe 8 months apart, something like that. And every time I had a renewed sense of who I was, and then I've incorporated little things that you shared with me. Like one of the examples was I never met my 3 out of 4 of my grandparents, and you were telling me that I have a lot of blockages in terms of energetic flow in my life is because for some reason I compartmentalize, like I never met them, so they weren't a part of my life. And you said, no, I mean, they're a part of your lineage. It's important to acknowledge them and to, send them love wherever they are, even though they weren't there for you growing up physically. They were there on another dimension and another level. And it really it made me think that I was holding back so much from giving them love because there was maybe a little bit of resentment towards them because they weren't in my life. But yeah, it really helped me look at things from such a different perspective. I had a really big emotional release after that session. So yeah, it's just one of the small examples. And yeah, life is incredible. Living my highest purpose, and now with the baby, it's just changed my life so much. So yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge that. Thank you.
Yeah. That's so wonderful to hear because, the ancestral lineage is so important in all of this. All of the healing that everybody does, that plays such an important role. So that's really wonderful to hear that there's such a shift from that. And they're so present too, the ancestors, they're, in fact, like right now, I can feel it all around you. They're just so present and so supportive, and they're there if you just open up to it. It's like all around you, supporting you. So it's really beautiful connecting to that.
Yeah, it's like tuning into the right radio frequency. I was only listening to one channel for a long time. Now I have multiple playlists that I listen to different channels. So I think it's super important to just broaden our perspective in every which way. And I think, for you as an Akashic reader, so for those who don't know what Akashic Records are. Can you just kind of explain what the Akashic Records are real quick, and then we can kind of, transition into, why you wanted to do a darkness retreat?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of people, first of all, I'm going to explain the Akashic Records from how I experience them, because a lot of people, if you look it up, it's like, a library in the sky, and I can understand why it's shared that way. But the Akashic Records, it's basically a vibration that you can access, and it stores your soul's history. So your soul from source and all lifetimes that come, every experience, every lifetime, everything. It's all within this frequency. So it's just a case of accessing that frequency, and then all the information is there. But it's so broad, with Akashic readings, because there's so much that can come up. And, there can be like with yours, there's some kind of mediumship there too. Sometimes, family members who have crossed will come through. So it's kind of broader than just the soul's history. It's really when there's a reading occurring, it's what the client is meant to receive, like in this moment at this time. Because if you imagine how broad the soul's journey is, and you're fitting this into a 1-hour session. So, what comes through in a reading is just so special, because it's exactly in that moment, in that time, that it's to be received. So, yeah, it's a beautiful way to access, to help people with getting to know themselves as not only who we are now, like not just me as Tiffany, but me as a soul, and the client as a soul. And it just really opens people up to who they were, who they will be, and it's just the vastness of their soul, plus everything that can be going on in their daily lives right now. It's really limitless, what Akashic readings can help with.
Yeah,
So
past, present, future, parallel timelines. It's all part of the same thing. It's all one moment and one present thing in your soul's journey. So
yeah.
for someone who can access these records, which is pretty incredible, what inspired you to do a darkness retreat?
So the darkness retreat, I had never heard about them until it was 2022, and a friend told me about it. And I remember my immediate reaction was, I could never do that. I need the light. If I was in darkness, it just feels so overwhelmingly oppressive. And then I noticed it came into my field again. Another friend, not even connected, brought it up, and it brought up that fear again. And I've learned to follow the fear. So I started to become intrigued. Like, why is this so fearful for me? What is, there's something here. There's something to be shown, or there's some purpose in it. So I started exploring it and realized that this was definitely something that I needed to try, because it brought up the fear, and I wanted to go straight for that fear to see what was underneath it. So that's kind of how I became interested in it. And the particular place that I chose is in Oregon. It's called Sky Cave Retreats. And at the time, I had to book a year in advance. So now, from what I understand, it's 2 years in advance. I think they only have 4 caves. So I think they are expanding, but for now they have 4. So it was something that, it was in the future, which is also kind of scary, because it's not like something that you think, okay, I'm just going to do this now. I'm going to face this thing and do it. It was like, okay, no, you have to wait a whole year and simmer in that, And so I really kind of enjoy how I had that waiting period also before I actually went into the darkness for the experience.
Yeah, anticipation. I can't
Yep.
imagine. So what were your expectations going into the retreat? Obviously, you had a year to think about it. What did you think it was going to be like versus the reality of what it was?
The funny thing is, I don't think I had any expectations. I didn't even know why I was being guided there. So I was kind of like, whatever I'm meant to receive, whatever I'm going to experience is what I'm meant to receive and experience. And I kind of just put it out there. And I really didn't go, follow the road of expectations. I was just, this is what I'm doing. I'm being guided by spirit, so I'm going to do it. And the experience was not necessarily what I thought it was going to be, but it was also exactly what I needed it to be. And, and this isn't for everybody. There are some people who go through some really difficult times in the darkness, but my experience was so deep self-love and nurturing. And I mean, there's kind of like the whole story, leading up to all of this. I don't know if you want me to go ahead and share about, leading up into the darkness. So this was back in April, and I arrived at the retreat center, and it was in the afternoon. And Scott, who owns Sky Cave Retreats, he invites people to enter into the darkness when they arrive, because you arrive the day before you go into the darkness, and then remain in the darkness all night just to kind of adjust your body, and then come out the next day whenever you feel called. I had booked a somatic therapy session for prior to and post retreat. That's something that they offer. And it was so valuable. So I basically went into the darkness and was there for that first night. And I stayed till 1 p.m. the next day when my somatic therapy session occurred. So I came out of the darkness and realized, during that time, I was in flight response. It's not that I felt like I wanted to leave, but my body was just in a state of flight response. And what was so meaningful was I realized that my go-to every time I'm looking for nurturing, my go-to is nature. And as soon as I go out in nature and spend time with the trees, or spend time with the air, with the clouds, with the grass, with anything in nature, rocks, they're so soothing for me, and it just completely calms my nervous system. And when I was in the darkness, I didn't have that. And there was a time when the trees did come in. They were very present for me, and I could feel their presence and their comfort, but it wasn't deep. It wasn't like actually being with them. And I think they were just bringing a sense of it, but they weren't fully bringing themselves because of the journey I needed to go to within myself to find that self-nurturing. So when I had the somatic therapy session, Adrienne, who is the woman who led these, she's absolutely wonderful. But she kind of went down the path of, well, what if you allowed yourself to walk out of the darkness anytime you wanted to? Because you're not locked in the room. You can walk out anytime you want. There's a light switch. You can turn it on anytime you want. That's all your choice. So my immediate reaction was, there's no way. I've been waiting for a year. I will never walk out. I'm not going to fail. And, all of that started coming up, which was very useful to kind of release that. And it was really profound, because once I actually gave myself permission that if I felt that for my self-love that I needed to walk out and just go sit on a rock for 10 minutes or touch a tree and walk back in, then I would give that to myself. That was my act of self-love. So once I gave myself that permission, my nervous system completely just calmed down, and I was very grounded, and I just felt so much relief. And I didn't walk out at any point. I was there for 4 days. It didn't even, after the first 24 hours, I remember thinking I could walk out if I wanted to, but as soon as the thought came in, it left, and I was never tempted to walk out. But giving myself that permission to walk out was the game changer. So if I hadn't had that, I don't know if my experience would have been different than what it was, because I really did have a truly beautiful experience in the darkness. But I think if there was something I was going to share with people, it would be one of the things is, sometimes self-love is just giving yourself permission to bring that love to yourself, to allow yourself to do something that you might be blocking because you feel like you're going to be a failure, or you feel like you have to stand up to this, to be this person or whatever. But giving yourself permission to do whatever you need to do to nurture yourself and love yourself, it's a game changer, without judgment from yourself or from anybody else. So that was really profound. And, the more as I was spending time in the darkness, I really, most of the time, I learned how to nurture myself. I didn't have nature. And I became the nurturer. So whenever I went through something or moved through something or an emotion came up, it was myself that was nurturing me. And I think we so often don't do that. In life, first of all, some people, you might go to a partner or a family member or a friend. Other people, utilize nature as I do. And there's so many ways that we receive nurturing and love outside of self. But when you're in the darkness and you have no distractions and you have not your usual things to kind of grab for that nurturing, you only have yourself. And then I just became so present of my nurturing nature. And I remember thinking, where is this coming from? I didn't even know I could feel this way. And it was so deep, that self-love and that nurturing was so deep that for moments, I actually felt like I did not need anything outside of myself. And that's always been a concept. I've heard that, and I could kind of understand the concept, but I had never truly felt it. And I felt it. And it wasn't something that came to me and has stayed. It was kind of like an emotion that came up and moved through my body. And I felt this emotion of, I don't need anything outside of self. And everything that's outside of self is just additional to it. It's great to have it. It's like the cherry on top. I mean, yes, I will enjoy that love from that person or from that tree or from wherever I'm receiving it. But in the depth of myself, I don't need it. It's lagniappe, as they say in New Orleans. It's just something extra, And so that actually moved through my body. And I remember thinking, wow, I've experienced that now. I've truly experienced not needing anything outside of self. And I wonder if I'll be able to experience it again. And I did another time in the darkness. It came as profoundly as it did the first time, which was wonderful, because then I was thinking, okay, well, then when I go back into my daily life, integration, will I be able to remember that feeling? Will I be able to tap into it? And I felt like, okay, I've been given the gift of experiencing it twice. So it's like, another layer of it. And that overall was my experience. I was flowing through the darkness. It was really just this beautiful flow state. And there were times of boredom. I did feel boredom, but honestly, I just felt like I could flow in that state for quite a while. And it was very pleasant and very peaceful. So I always like to challenge myself, though. So I was kind of flowing in the state for a couple of days. And then I was thinking, okay, well, I want to go deeper, because I could flow here for 4 days and it would be wonderful. But I decided I wanted to go deeper. So there were some anger issues that had come up, and I decided that I wanted to, face some of those. And with 2 people in particular that had been in my life that I had not addressed this anger. And so I did do that. It was kind of a personal experience, but basically what I did is I brought that person into the room, sitting down on the bed with me, and I said everything to that person that I had never said before, and I cried. and I punched the person, and I just let all of it out, and they were there and they were present, and I released it. And this went on another time with another experience in my life. And it was very powerful, and I'm glad that I experienced it. But I don't feel like I necessarily needed to. It's kind of odd. It's like I know that I needed to release some of this anger, but that was choice. That was my choice to do that. All that I was really needing to receive was that deep self-love and nurturing. That's why I had been guided to this darkness, was to receive that. So it was really beautiful, because after the anger release, I did have some difficulties grounding. Grounding in the darkness was kind of hard for me. And what was so wonderful about the place that I chose, Sky Cave Retreats, is that Scott, who owns it and runs it, he is just so gifted at assisting. So basically what happens in the darkness is he comes twice a day. He'll come in the morning, and then he comes again in the evening to bring all the food. So when he comes twice a day, he'll kind of check in through the door. And if you want to speak to him or share anything, you can, or you don't have to. He's just present. He's there. And that particular time he came, I think it was morning time. And he tends to the fire, which is outside of the door. So that's what heats up the room. And so he was tending to the fire, and I told him I was having difficulty grounding. And so he sat in silence outside of the door, and I felt his energy come in and was very present. And he basically helped to co-regulate my nervous system and just completely grounded me just so fully. It was so beautiful. And so that was really amazing to receive that, during that time in the darkness. And I also learned from that, though, the next day I was having some difficulty grounding, and I remember thinking to myself, I wish Scott was here. He could help me. And then I stopped myself, because I want to be able to do that for myself. Just like with the Akashic readings, I was like, I had this amazing reading, but then I wanted to be able to do that for myself. So same with the grounding and regulating my nervous system. I was thinking, it's wonderful that he showed me how I can be so grounded, but this is something I need to be able to do for myself. So that's kind of been a journey that I've been going on also, is that really deep grounding, which is such a beautiful feeling, because I tend to be kind of flighty with, in the work that I do, I'm kind of in the realms a lot. So grounding is very important for me. And I just feel like I've been given the gift of being able to go to a deeper level that I had not experienced in grounding from that.
Incredible. I mean, giving yourself the permission to love yourself and to soothe yourself, and, to know that there's nothing else that's needed. I think so many people, including myself, we struggle. Or many of us want to do things for others, or look for love from our wife, our dog, our baby, our business, for that outside external, feeling that we've accomplished something or we have something special. Whereas, it's very rare to go inward. It's very hard for me to just sit and I meditate or whatever, but my mind's moving all the time. And I'm thinking about what I want to manifest or thinking about what I love, but it's on the outside. And then it's very hard. It's very challenging to give yourself the permission to just know that there's nothing else outside of you. All these other things are beautiful, like you said, and they're bonus on top. But how can we, for those who don't go into darkness, what are some things that someone can do to really just accept that love within them?
I think so much of it is just loving the person that you are, like, right in this moment. Because, when we think of self-love and we're like, I'm going to love myself when I have this or when I can do this. And that's not loving and accepting with all of the things that we think are faults that we have. So, I know personally with my journey of self-love, it's loving me in every moment. Those moments when I feel like I'm not fully present. It's okay. I still love myself. moments when I'm feeling anxiety and it's overwhelming, it's like, okay, it's okay. I still love myself. And just really feeling into loving the person with all of the things that we think are faults and flaws. And, it's very easy to love the person that we want to be, that model of that person. I'll really love myself once I do this or once I achieve this. But really being in the now moment of loving like who I am right now, everything about it, and all of who I am. And that too was a concept to me at one point. Like it's like even when I say it right now, I hear it like it can be a concept, but when you feel it, it's just so different. And even now, I mean, I don't feel that all the time. I know what it's like to feel it. And I have to remind myself sometimes, come back to love, come back to love. But there are definitely times when I'm out there reaching for the person that I want to be and the person that I feel like I should be. And I just have to bring myself back, And, another thing that I definitely received from the darkness, and this has been a slow integration. You reached out to me in May. So I was in the retreat in April. You reached out in May for the podcast, and I thought I was ready. And I contacted you the night before and I was like, I can't do it. And so thank you for being so understanding with that.
Of course.
But I realized, I realized it was just such a personal experience. I was just not ready to share it. I was not in the space to share it. I just needed more integration, basically. So I reached out to you recently saying, okay, I feel like this needs to be shared now. And, but so another thing that was just, such a deep experience for me during the darkness was just being more present. We talk about this with meditation all the time. That's how you and I met, was via the Dr. Joe retreat, and, meditation, you're coming into the moment. But now I feel like I'm able to be more aware of when I'm not present, my energy is out. It's like out there. And I can feel it now. So I come back, I bring my energy back. It's like sometimes when you think about somebody, like if you're concerned about somebody, or if you have a partner and you're concerned about them, you realize when you're thinking about that person, your energy is all on that. Not all, but a lot of it is on that space. And then when you just consciously bring it back to self, you can just feel that fullness and wholeness. And, you can still be there for other people. You can still assist them and send them love and be present for your family and your partner. But coming back to self and being present for yourself also, that's just part of that nurturing and that love, because I think so many of us, we scatter ourselves out to so many people and we don't leave enough for ourselves. So in that should be out of ego, not in an egoic way, but from love. That should be where we begin, is, within the self. And then we, once that cup is full, then we can give more wholly and more fully to other people.
Yeah, you're 100% right on that. I think your vibrational state at every moment, every present moment, is the most important thing you can do. And serving others, you do best by being the vibrational state of love and harmony, right? Whenever I think about, I'm concerned about this person, and my mind is there, and in a way, it's projecting some sense of fear onto them as well when you're thinking in that regard. So I've been working on this a lot lately too, is, I want everybody to be happy. I want everybody loved, but whatever everyone's going through is for their highest good, right? Otherwise they wouldn't be going through it. That's my belief, that the universe is perfect. There's no mistakes whatsoever. So when I'm leasing out my energy elsewhere, is it the best direction for my soul growth? It's not. And I think one of those things I need to incorporate is allowing that self-love, and not to worry about so much about other people and how can I do these things for other people, but to really be present for myself. And I think the more I focus on that, the more things are kind of flowing a little bit easier in my life. And again, it's challenging and on so many levels because we're never taught to just love ourselves, to accept that, and to think, yeah, like you don't need anything else in this world as long as you have a sound mind, sound heart. Really, that's all we are. That's all that we can ever want. Because without those things, what can you actually do in life? Nothing, right?
Yes, that's so true. And I appreciate you stating that in your way also. And it's so wonderful to hear, other people in that space and in that state, because I remember they do this exit recording when you leave the darkness. It's optional, but I remember one of the things I said when I first took my mask off and
That was
was
a
looking
beautiful
around.
video, by the way. Thank you for sharing that. I hope you don't mind if we share that on the podcast.
Yeah, that's totally
Okay. Yeah.
fine. Yeah. But I remember what occurred to me in that moment was, and just this, you're reminding me of it because of your bringing in that centeredness of love, is imagine a world where everybody was operating from that place. The world would be so different, so vastly different, and maybe that's the goal, really. It's really just the non-egoic, from the heart-centered self-love. It all just stems from there, and it really, truly, I just feel would be a completely different place that we would be living in.
100%. And yeah, in order for everyone to change, it's like we have to start with ourselves, right? So the number one mission for me, for you, is to get to that place within. And then hopefully that inspires other people. Hopefully other people take on that initiative. And then it spreads. And, we should definitely put all of our politicians in a darkness retreat. 100%. It's a wild world we're living in. And, common sense would tell you, okay, if we want the best for the country, let's come together and see how we can work together to make this place a beautiful place to live. But it's not like that. It's like ego versus ego. And this is your idea, so I have to take the opposite stance, which it never helps anybody. And, this country is suffering, but I really think it's right now, it's what we need. We need to see all this craziness in order for us to understand, hey, there's better ways of going about things. It's just the collective consciousness. We've just allowed all of these things to happen in terms of division and separation and all this. But it starts within. If somebody wants to change outside, you have to make that change within and rise above any kind of duality in this world. And that's something that the last year has been like just a complete mindfuck for me, is understanding everything has validity. The opposite side of what I believe there's altruism in the opposite side. In practice, maybe not so much. And maybe the things that I believe in practice are not so much, in altruism. But I guess we just have to understand, like, everything that's happening in the universe is here serving us for the reason that we need. And just to understand, how can we absorb all of it and not be affected by it? And how can we just put more light and put more love into the world? And yeah, again, it starts with having love within and love for others, because we can't love others people without the loving ourselves, truly loving ourselves.
Yeah, because we don't know what it feels like. How can you really know what it feels like to love somebody else if you don't love yourself? But I'm really glad you brought up about the duality that's kind of occurring right now. And I mean, everywhere, but in the US with everything that's going on in politics. And I think it's really important to, to understand that somebody's opinions might be very important to them. But just because they're different than what your opinion might be doesn't make them wrong. To them, they're right. And they're just everybody's operating from where they are in that moment. We all have our traumas. We don't know what's going on with the other person. We don't know what their life experience has been. And just not getting drawn into that duality. You were saying, coming from that place of love, and it doesn't have to be all fairies and rainbows. I mean, we're human, we're in this world, we have shit that happens. But, coming back to, okay, well, this person is just, they're responding, reacting, being that way because that's who they are. That's their life path. And not to just feel anger or resentment or, hatred even for that because they feel different. I think that's really part of that self-love, like you said, is just all of humanity, just knowing we're all going through it. And somebody might have a completely different opinion than you, but it's okay. It's okay. Let them have their opinion. I might not understand it, but
Yeah. Their
the
thoughts.
judgment.
Yeah. Their thoughts, their feelings, their actions are all a sum total of every experience they've ever had. So until we step in that person's shoes, we have no idea. And they're just doing the best that they can in every moment. There's always opportunities for all of us to do better and to learn from certain things and not to allow or not to accept things from holding us back in life and to continue to grow. But everybody's going to make that choice on their own terms. You can't force growth on anybody, including nobody can force growth on me unless I want to change.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell me about coming out of the experience. You talked about the exit interview, but what was it like to come out of that darkness? Were you, first of all, right at the end, I'm sure you were like, oh, I'm just settling in. Maybe I could do this a little bit longer. But was it easy to come out? Were you totally ready? Or were you like, wait a second, do I have more work to do?
I was ready in the sense that I think the hardest thing for me, and I'm sure this is for everybody, was that boredom. It's like it would be the flow state and you'd receive and you'd move through and then you'd kind of come back to the boredom. I could have stayed longer, but I was also ready. You know what I mean? It's not like I was dying to get out, but it was it was a wonderful feeling to be able to see the trees. And there was this giant rock that was right outside my cave that I had spent a lot of time with before I went into the darkness. And that was the first thing when I took off my mask that I saw was just this rock was just greeting me. And, it's kind of like a child being away from their mother. And then the mother comes and you just feel all that love come in. And so, yeah, I mean, it was, I don't take it all for granted. If I did before, I definitely, again, I'm just because nature is such a healer for me, just our Mother Earth and not taking her for granted, because we live on this amazing planet and we have such beauty around us. And even in a city, you have a tree on the street that you can touch and walk by and, they're there for you. So yeah, just coming out of the darkness and being able to see nature, that was the first thing, opening my eyes and seeing that nature and feeling all of that again was really beautiful. And it took me, integration, like I said, took a while. It definitely was different stages and different layers. And right after the retreat, I went over to Mount Shasta and stayed there for a few days and went on hikes and, all of that. Because I wanted to, that was really good to do instead of just getting on an airplane and coming home.
Yeah, come back
to
and
my
plug
children.
right back in.
Yeah, having to take care of other people and all of that. So that was a gift to myself, was being able to do that. So that definitely helped a lot. Yeah. And then there were times when I came back, there were times at first when I was like, am I going to forget all of this? Am I going to be able to retain any of it? And at times I would feel it. And then at times I was like, I don't feel it at all. And I was going through all of those kind of cycles of will this remain? It's not always just about the experience. It's about the integration, integrating it into your life and your being. And I think, the reason I reached out recently was I realized that it is there. And before, back in May, I would have been coming from a place of maybe grasping a little bit and like, oh, is it still there? Let me talk about it so I can see if it's still there. But now I feel like everything that I went through and whatever I experienced and learned and, that evolution, I feel it in me. So that I think is why I came to that space of being able to share it, you know.
Yeah. And just as importantly, speaking to you, I feel that shift in you. Like you know, there's a resonance coming from you that's a little bit more, more elevated, I guess, from even before that last time we spoke. So you told me one time my power is in my presence, and I feel that so much more, coming from you now, because yeah, like everything that you did just is now a part of you. It resonates on every cell and your energy and your auric field. And how do you think this is going to change the way that you read for people, or how you're showing up as a healer for others?
That's a good question. I don't actually know, to be honest. I feel like things are shifting in my life, in my physical world right now. I'm starting to do more in person. I feel like some of that has come from the darkness and what I experienced. I'm planning on doing some in person. I'm in Sarasota, Florida, and I'm going to be doing some in person women's circles and womb healings. So I kind of feel like I'm being guided different, maybe a different path, or it's opening up another path. And so I just I guess I hadn't really thought about that, to be honest. That's a good question. I just kind of am going with what seems to be opening up, or where my joy is being led to. So you can't experience something like this, like the darkness, and not shift, and I do want to say that, I'm sharing my personal experience, and I'm very grateful that it was a positive experience for me. But I do know that there are people that have a very hard time. And so I don't want to mislead anybody. It's going to be this beautiful, wonderful experience. Everybody's different. Everybody has their own shadows. Everybody is in a different space when they go into the darkness. There was somebody who was leaving the day I arrived. She actually emerged from her cave, and I happened to be walking by, and we had a conversation, and she had come out a day early, and she had a really, really tough time. And it was very difficult for her, even afterwards. So, but she also received whatever she was meant to receive from that, whether it be guiding her to some deeper self-work, or whether she decides not to. We're all in that space of, and in that space of loving yourself too. Even if it's not the experience you hope for it to be, it's what you needed to receive. So just loving yourself through that also, is so important. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. It's such a personal experience for everybody, and it can be so different for so many people.
Yeah, super important to acknowledge that. Even with psychedelics, any kind of spiritual work is going to force you to look at your shadow and integrate things that we might not be aware of, or maybe that we're aware of that we try to push away. But do you think that it's important we have to integrate the shadow parts of us in order to have spiritual growth? Or do you think you're able to have spiritual growth without going to measures like that?
That's a good question too.
Yeah, I just thought of that. And I thought,
Yeah.
it's a hard question, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And okay, so I'm going to come from personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely feel like shadow work is very important. We can't bypass it. That's part of the healing journey. That's part of healing ourselves. That's part of evolution. So the question is the depths of the shadow work that each person goes through. Some people just really go deep and hard. And I mean, I have some spiritual friends who are just like all the time, and I wouldn't be able to do it at that rapid pace and with the vigor that they are. This is their journey and their choice. But definitely shadow work, needs to be addressed in the person's time with the methods that they feel they are called to. That brings up something that happened to me in the darkness is the day before I went in. So I had arrived, And I was kind of sitting there, stating my intentions to the universe. And I received this message that, I released my intentions out to the universe and to just let that go and to love myself. It's all I had to do. It was like, that's all I had to do. It seemed so simple, you know? And so when I was in the darkness, I brought up about the anger thing. I made the choice to kind of bring this shadow work in. I was like, okay, this flowing in this state was beautiful, but I wanted to go more. I wanted to, have that. And it just kind of feels like it's coming around full circle with your question. Definitely shadow work, but we don't always have to pound at it. I feel like sometimes, depending on the person, we can move through shadow work in a more gentle manner. And it could just be the place you are in your life, too. It could be in one stage. It doesn't need to be so hard pushing at it. Sometimes we can still move through the shadows with so much love and grace, and I just see that in the spiritual community. It's like, sometimes people just want to push so hard. And yes, that can be a good thing, depending on where people are in their lives, but also bringing in that, like the permission, I'm going to just go easier on myself right now and still, have the shadow work being present, moving through it, but I don't need to pound at it. So.
Yeah, very, very important. And what advice would you give to somebody who feels a little bit lost or disconnected from their truest self? What are some maybe baby steps they can start taking to move towards this path?
Well, I think one of the first things is the awareness of the present moment as much as possible. We're so distracted by thinking about the past and thinking about the future. We're very rarely in the present moment. And I think so many people think about, oh, I have to meditate for 20 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, and then they go about their lives and they do all the other stuff and they're in the past and they're in the future. But bringing that into like daily presence, it's amazing what being present as often as possible can do for your nervous system, can do like bringing your energy back to yourself, grounding yourself, just being present. And when you're actually present with yourself, you feel that love. And if you don't start feeling that love, then love the fact that you're not, that wherever you are in that moment of feeling, like don't judge yourself because it's all this journey. And that's the hardest part is like, I'm not being present. I'm not, when I'm with myself, I'm just judging myself. Can you go deeper and love yourself through that? Like you would love somebody else. We're so much harder on ourselves. We would give a partner or somebody that we love, we would nurture them and support them and help them. But so often we don't give that to ourselves. So just being present is really the first step. Present with your own energy, like getting to know yourself, your energy, your body, our minds are so out on the external. And that's really something the darkness brings too. It just brings you in because you don't have anything on the external. So yeah, that's definitely one of the first steps is just that presence as often as possible.
Beautiful. I think recently when I had this really profound experience spiritually, I won't go into all the details, but essentially the takeaway was everything is a choice. So when I decide to have a thought, I have to reframe it to say, I'm choosing to have this thought. I'm choosing to be present. So it's coming from an empowering state. If I'm feeling down, I could also say, I'm choosing to feel down right now, but I can also choose now to feel this way, right? So when we're coming from that empowering state, we're not losing our power. We're actually being aware of the situation, what is going on right now, being present with that, and then getting to decide now, how do I want to go about it from here? So I think that's the way we can start really reframing our thoughts and stop being a victim of our thoughts, but being the I guess, the portrayer of our thoughts. We're able to now choose in every moment how we want to think, how we want to feel, what we want to do, what we want to act off of. So yeah, I think that's kind of, goes along with everything that you were saying, but doing it from a very, very empowered perspective.
Yeah. And that's a very powerful place to come from. I mean, I love that you are sharing that. I'm going to start using that in my life too, because that is so important. And, you mentioned about giving your power away. That's like, it's almost like we're taught to do that from a young age, and realizing that we do have the choice and we do have the power. It's not like everything is, we're being controlled by something else. This is our choice and our power. And so I love that.
Beautiful. Tiffany, I want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing your gifts and sharing your amazing story. It's really like you're one of the most beautiful people in that we know, Kate and I know in our lives. And you're just always, you come from such a place of light. And anytime we told people about you and they've worked with you, they're just blown away. And you have a very large fan base, and it's growing more and more. And I highly encourage anybody who is looking for some spiritual direction in their life. Really, it's about learning who you are. And I think Tiffany is a conduit to help you see yourself. She's a mirror, but you get to see the best version of yourself. And I really think that that's your gift, and giving people so much, not hope, but inspiration to really step into the beauty that they are on all levels and all dimensions, and knowing that it's not so far away from you that you have to ascend to this place, but you actually are that place. So just thank you for being the amazing soul that you are, Tiffany.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. And, on that note, I just kind of want to share that all of the clients and the people that I come across because of this work, I'm not doing it. I'm not healing. They're doing it themselves. It's just that they are assisted with the frequency of healing. So, talking about empowerment, the healing comes from them. And when I meet somebody for these sessions, I'm receiving from them also, So it's a gift, just connecting with these souls both ways. I can't imagine doing anything, else that was not connecting on this level and in this way. So yeah, like you and I connecting and your whole family. I mean, there's so much love, from this energetic and soul connection, which is such a gift. So yeah.
Absolutely. How can our listeners connect with you and learn a little bit more about your work?
Yeah, so I still don't have a website yet. For some reason, I just have not been guided to get a website. It might be coming at some point in the future, but I am on Instagram, and I am recently moving back to Facebook, which I have been wanting to stay away from. I'd gotten off of Facebook a couple of years ago. I don't really like social media, but it's just part of navigating this world that we're in right now, because I'm going to be doing some in-person sessions. So Facebook is the avenue for that. So on Instagram, it's at Tiffany Alice Malone, and Facebook, I'm trying to remember because it was just a couple days ago that I went back on. I think you just searched my name, Tiffany Alice Malone, on Facebook also.
Wonderful.
So yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to share?
No, just so grateful for you and for this podcast that you have. I watch a lot of them, and it's just so amazing to connect with these people, and they have something to share and say. And I'm grateful that you're doing this and continuing to do it, because I think it's really important for people to hear. And so, yeah, thank you for being present and for being here and for helping me to be able to share this experience too, because that's really important. So
you're very welcome. Thank you. And I was your first podcast.
Yes.
So hopefully,
I remember I was so nervous that first one. Yeah. So
I remember.
Yeah, you've been on this journey with me for quite a while.
Yeah. But now the throat chakra is wide open, and You're ready for Joe Rogan now.
Oh God, no, I wouldn't go that far.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Appreciate you.
All right. You take care.